Well, today we continue in our journey through the Word. Today is day 103 in our journey. Just continue to be just great reading for me, as God just showed so many things, and I really had to kind of narrow down what are the things that He wants me to just speak about today and talk about, and it all came back to the word responsibility. Responsibility means to be answerable or accountable as for something within one's power, something within one's control. And we see that today, God showed that to me today in our reading about needing to take responsibility for your actions. And let me go back and remind us where all of this began. The passing of responsibility for our sins. Who wants to be accountable? God asked, "Had you eaten from the tree whose fruit I commanded you not to eat?" The man replied, "It was the woman you gave me, like that, who gave me the fruit, and I ate it." Then the Lord asked the woman, "What have you done?" "The serpent deceived me," she replied. "That's why I ate." And we saw today in Saul being confronted, and I want to read part of the passage today. But Saul was confronted with the fact that he did not follow God's commands that He gave through Samuel. He did not follow, and the command was that they were to destroy all the people, the animals, the things of the Amorites. And instead we saw that he saved the king, and they kept the other they destroyed the things that just weren't quite up to their standards. Those things that may have been defective or just not as pretty, they got rid of. But Saul, when confronted with his sin, he said, "Yes, I have sinned. I have disobeyed your instructions and the Lord's command, for I was afraid of the people and did what they demanded." Responsibility, answerable or accountable, as for something within one's power or control. He's their king. He has the control to say, "No, this is what God commands." And because he didn't, the people continued to sin, and they did not follow God's command. Now, we see where he says, "Well, we were bringing these very best back to sacrifice to the Lord." That's not what that's not what the Lord asked for. The Lord asked for obedience. And out of our reading in chapter 15, starting with 22, then Samuel replied, and this is what he was saying to Saul: "What is more pleasing to the Lord? What is more pleasing to the Lord? Your burnt offerings and sacrifices, or your obedience to His voice?" Listen, obedience is better than sacrifice, and submission is better than offering the fat of rams. Rebellion is sinful as witchcraft. Rebellion is as sinful as witchcraft, and stubbornness as bad as worshiping idols. Stubbornness. So because you have rejected the commands of the Lord, He has rejected you as king. This is not the first time that Saul has been told that God has rejected him as king. And instead of coming back and continuing to follow in the ways of the Lord and the commands of the Lord, he continues to go astray. He continues to be swayed by the people and doing what the people want, and then putting the blame on him. Their king blamed them. As their leader, he refused to take responsibility, and the opposite should be true. The leader needs to take responsibility for his own actions. for the actions that happen under His watch? Are we not required to do the same in the leadership positions? When we're placed in those leadership positions, we have to take responsibility for those things that happen under our watch, those things which we have authority over. The other thing is, if we could see as God sees and know as God knows, would we make better choices? And because of our sinful nature, I would say, no, we still wouldn't. Sin draws us away, separates us from God. We can't. God has already said we can't know as God knows, see as God sees. So we've got to trust Him. The Lord does not see things the way you see them. People judge by outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. That was out of Samuel 16:7. We look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Seeing is to perceive with our eyes, to view, to scan, to discern, to understand. That's what God does with our hearts. He looks at our hearts with His eyes. He scans our hearts. He discerns our hearts. He understands our hearts. We could never do that. So how do we judge? We judge on the beauty or the tall. And I wonder today, had Goliath been an Israelite, as tall as he was, would he have been selected as king just because of his appearance? Saul was. He was the tallest of them all. He was handsome. He was good looking. But God knew his heart. God knew that he would be here where he is today. We need to stop and listen to what God is telling us. I must stop and listen to what God is telling me. I have to take responsibility. I have to listen. I am accountable to God for my sins, as you are for yours. I must continue to pray that God will give me godly vision, godly ears, so that I may hear and I may see, and I may not judge things according to the outside only, but I may have a better understanding of what's inside, what's in God, inside of God's plan. That's my prayer for you today, that God will give you godly hearing and godly sight, that you may better understand His will. I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you tomorrow as we continue our journey through the Word.